Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Tandem Talk here at the Nonbinarian. For those of you who don't know me, which is totally valid because my face is rarely here, I'm Samantha. I am the book club coordinator and newsletter editor for the Nonbinarian. And I'm super excited because today we get to chat with Casey McQuiston about their new book, The Pairing, which comes out next week. Tuesday it'll hit shelves, and I think it's going to be really delightful to see what y'all think about it. It's also our book club pick for August, which is exciting. I think it's going to be fun to chat about. I really enjoyed reading it, and I think that y'all will too. So I'm going to go ahead and get Casey on the call. And hopefully Instagram will behave itself.
Hello.
Huzzah! Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you? It's great to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. My bagel truck had like a special sandwich this morning
Okay.
that was like very like Spanish inspired with like Spanish ham and like a brava sauce. It felt very the pairing and it was delicious.
Okay.
So I'm
Nice.
like
Nice.
riding that
I
high.
love that. Your bagel truck was thinking about you today, and that's important.
Yeah. The pairing promo has finally gone too far. It's gotten to my bagel truck.
Yeah. Speaking of the pairing promo, I saw that it's book of the month, which is
It
exciting.
is.
Special hardcover edition, and I think the promo that they're doing is iconic.
It's
It's right on
so
point.
it's so good. Like they're like so committing to the bit
Mm-hmm.
of like we are all having a horny summer. Um, I feel like I don't want to put myself anywhere near this level, but I do feel like Charlie XCX like really seeded
Mm-hmm.
like us all having like a slutty brat summer, and we're all and like I get to now play on her playground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the timing is excellent. I have to say, yeah, it worked out
Yeah.
really, really well. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so congratulations on yet another incredible romance book. I'm so
Thank you so
excited for it.
much.
Yeah, so I have some questions for you, some of which were contributed by other folks from the non-binary community, some of which are just from me, and then we'll kind of see where the conversation takes us. So,
Yeah, I'm excited.
yeah, so first, I mean, this one I feel like is a pretty common
Sorry.
question, but I'm curious, you're good. What was it that first inspired the pairing, and then sort of how has the story evolved since that initial idea?
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot because I feel like you do get asked this question a lot, but it usually comes so long after you came up with the idea that you're like, I don't remember anymore. Um, but but I do feel like this book is very much like spiritually like sort of me um, grasping for a lot of things that I felt like I was missing during like COVID isolation and like when like deep COVID when like you really couldn't even go out into the world and like taste or smell anything,
Mhm.
you know, and you couldn't touch anything and you couldn't like have like random chance interactions and encounters with people. Like those are all things that like inspire me a lot and that I love about being alive and that I use a lot in my writing.
Mhm.
Um, and so I feel like when I started writing this book and like it was like I kind of came up with the idea of like summer of 22. Um, Obviously we were by no means like out of the woods yet and we still aren't, but I was really, really craving a reconnection with so many of those things. And I was, when you set out to write a book, you do kind of have the luxury of being like, what kind of things do I want to think about for the next year? Like, what kind of
Yeah.
world do I want to inhabit for the next year or however long it takes to write it? And I was like, I really want to live in like a world of food and drink and like a world of like physical experience and like human, like weird fleeting human
Mhm.
connections and things like that. And then I had also been wanting to write an exes to lovers story for a long
Uh-huh.
time. And so with those two things kind of like in the crock pot, I think what came out was like exes to lovers, European food and wine tour. What is that something? And originally it was going to be they broke up on the flight and then still had to do the tour together. But
Mm.
then I felt like that was like not enough tension, and it was more,
Yeah.
it was better if it was like we broke up, we went our separate ways, we haven't seen each other in years, but we like both had this tour voucher that was about to expire. I'm like, oh shit, you saved yours till the last month too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of the genesis of it.
I love that. And speaking of sort of the exes to lovers pipeline, Kit and Theo sort of follow this like friends to lovers to exes to rivals to lovers kind of
Yeah.
trajectory. And obviously, like with Red, White, and Royal Blue, you wrote about sort of like the rivals to fake friends to lovers pipeline.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I mean, what about that like type of dynamic appeals to you, and why is it something that you enjoy writing?
Yeah. I mean, God, I really love, I think especially like in queer romance, I love when there's like a conflict engine between two people that isn't just like my own internalized homophobia that I need to work through to be with you, you know? Like,
Mhm.
not that like I don't value stories like that too. It's just not as much what I'm interested in writing. And when I'm writing like a queer rom-com, I love it if the central conflict is not necessarily an identity one as much as it is like a like external forces one, or like a I really hate your guts one, or something like that.
Mhm.
I think that's just like really tasty, and I love like a high conflict romance that's like got that like zing and banter to it. And like with Kit and Theo, I think like I was also really drawn to the dynamic of two people who like are each other's people. And like what it looks like for them to exit each other's lives and then come back in, and how like you can only get so far from the person that was your most important person for the most of your life, because
Mhm.
like they see each other again for the first time in 4 years and they have like the same haircut, you
Right.
know. And like on like some like intrinsic like level of like the fucking cosmos and like the coils of their DNA, they're always going to be linked to each other, no matter what comes between them, no matter how long it's been.
Mm.
um, so like both of those things were like so delicious to me. um, I feel like that just like I eat that shit up, you know? And so yeah, so I was just drawn to it, and I don't even know why. I've always been so drawn to exes to lovers. I think I just love a second chance. I love the idea that like two people are meant to be, but it just wasn't the right time, or
Yeah.
they weren't the right versions of themselves yet. And I think with Kit and Theo, um, telling this like sort of gender story that I was trying to develop with Theo, having them have like split up and spent all this time apart and like evolved into these more realized versions of themselves. The exes to lovers thing allowed me to like play out a lot of things about like how your personal real like self-realization and embodiment, um, can make you even better for that person that you're supposed to be with. It's just like
Yeah.
you were the right person, it wasn't the right time. So those are all just delicious to me.
Just some little tidbits of some little morsels, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually have a couple questions to build off of that, but the first one that I'm curious about. So there are some other. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't read it yet,
Yeah.
but I know that there are a fair few people in the comments who seem to have gotten early copies. But there are a fair few other uh, romance tropes in the pairing
Yes.
um, that I enjoyed, because some of them were my personal favorites.
Ooh.
But so aside from the ones that we've like really seen you focus on as like overall arcs in your books, what are some of your favorite like romance tropes, and how do you like to queer them?
Ooh. Okay. I was just thinking about yesterday. I just like remembered or like noticed a trope that I realized I've used in every single book I've ever written. And it's like one of my favorites. And it's kind of like a micro trope, but it's like when two characters are flirting and they call each other by their last
Oh,
names.
yep.
Um, it's like, why is that hit so hard? Like, I don't know, but it's
It's
hot,
like the weird
right?
sports
Yeah.
team of it all, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like backslap, like butt slaps on the football pitch vibes, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, so I love that one. I don't know if I'm queering it as much. I mean, maybe I am queering it because it's like a very like like you said, it's a very like sports bro thing to do, and there's something
Mhm.
inherently homoerotic about that.
Yep.
So let's unpack that.
Mhm.
Um, but I love, I mean, okay, I don't think this is a spoiler because you don't know when it's going to happen, but I do love a Just One Bed.
Yep.
I mean, who
That's one that
doesn't?
I was thinking about. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I also love, I feel like the specific name of the trope, like on tvtropes.org, is like horny dream, horny action, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, where it's like you're like having like the characters like having a horny dream, and then they wake up and they're like, oh no, we're spooning. Like, oh
Oh,
no,
no.
like,
What are we going
oh
to
no,
do?
I know. And I feel like, okay, how can I? I mean, I feel like this will be mild spoilers. Um, close your ears if you don't want any spoilers at all. But I
Mild
feel like
spoilers, everybody.
okay, but I feel like I kind of cleared that in the scene where it happens in the pairing because Theo has like sort of like a flashback horny dream about like topping Kit in like
Hmm.
a way that is very like gender fucky,
Yeah.
and very like very queer, and like Kit is very much like Kit is like I want I feel like we need more like romance heroes who like probably are on Grinder. Like
Yep.
I feel like we
Hmm.
need that.
Yeah.
Um and so I feel like we were definitely queering that trope there in terms of like what you might expect that dynamic to be between those two
Hmm.
characters with like the equipment that they have. Um and and then like when they wake up and like it's very much like Theo is carrying through that dynamic
Yeah.
in the like horny dream, horny action of it all. So I feel like we're queering that trope a bit. Um, and I'm gonna try and think of one more. I mean, I really love I just another micro trope that I really love is like having to like lean close to whisper in a loud place. Um,
Uh,
I don't know if that's like counts as a microtrope, but I feel like you see it a lot like in like movies,
yeah.
like movie rom-coms, where it's like the forced proximity of it all.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like there's a lot of that, a lot of forced proximity moments in the book that I feel like they're the way that they are queered is that queer people are doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Sometimes that's all it
Yeah.
is. Um, but I don't know. Do you have like a favorite that I'm not thinking of right
Oh,
now
God.
from the book?
So I love The Only One Bed because it's a
Yeah,
classic.
yeah, it's,
You can't
it's a classic.
you can't get around it. I also enjoy like the leaning really close to whisper in somebody's ear thing, which unfortunately, like the brain rot
Yeah,
of it
yeah.
all is like I was a member of like the Teen Wolf fandom like 100,000 years ago, and that was like a big thing in the Teen Wolf fandom because the characters were constantly leaning into like whisper in
Or
each
like
other's ears.
threateningly
Like,
like menace each other.
yeah. And so that was like a big one like back then. And so I'm definitely with you on that. I think I also really enjoy the like forced proximity, having to be civil in front of other people
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I don't even know if that's like a trope necessarily, but it's something that I really enjoy because it builds a
Hmm.
lot of tension. And I think that that was something that was really present here because,
Hmm.
like, they're on this food and wine tour through Europe and it's a small group and everybody's kind of in everybody's business,
Yeah.
even if they don't mean to be,
Yeah.
which I thought was really delightful because at a certain point, it's like you can tell that neither Kit nor Theo wants these people to like know what's going on with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
but everybody knows. At least everybody thinks they know what's going on with them, which I thought was really
Yeah.
fun.
I feel like another like micro trope is like I love like a funny background event, and I
Mhm.
love like a little like the little pairing, like the like it's like below a B pairing. It's just like a tertiary pairing that we're like kind of getting little glimpses of.
Yeah.
And I feel like the
Yes.
Callums in this book are
Hmm.
very like they're like a fun little nod to like um to me I think it's really funny because like I come from like the school of like watching and reading everything and like searching for like the little hidden gay pairings inside it.
Oh,
And I
same.
think it's really funny to like do a queer book that like also has that in it where
Yeah.
it's like this one's just for the people that like want a little snack on the side.
Absolutely. Because sometimes, like, I love when I'm reading something or watching something, and it's like, okay, I'm super into this, like, main, like, protagonist
Yeah.
situation, and I'm very invested in their love story, and I care so much. But also, I really wish that these two had more screen time because I just really need to know what's going on with them.
And like and you and I are the kind of people that like our brains are like there's some part of our brains that is like lit up by
Yeah,
that stimulus, you
absolutely.
know, of like, oh, there's something going on over there. There's something fruity happening in that corner,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. And I
Hmm.
think it's really fun and really funny to like put that in a book that's like also horny on main
Yeah.
for like also gay on main. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's like, why can't we also have something fruity happening in the corner?
Yeah. Which I actually really like because I think for a long time, the only like gay shit that we had was the
Was
background stuff.
yes.
Was like the stuff that you were like really like squinting and like looking between people's faces to like see what was going on between the extras in the back. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's like three frames and like you're like it's like maybe this is a stretch, but I'm gonna screenshot these three frames and I'm
Hmm.
gonna this will be the thesis
Yeah.
of why these two people belong together. Yeah, it's that's like such a delicious little like it's a trope that makes you feel very
Yeah.
nostalgic um for like, you know, how fun it is to find those little diamond in the rough like rare pairs on the side. And so yeah, that was really fun to do.
Love that. We're being informed in the chat that apparently the first pairing fic on AO3 is about the Callums. So you did it.
Oh my God. Wow. Thank you, chat. Thank you,
Very
chat.
important.
That's
That's
like
very
such
important
important.
information. Thank
That's
you.
huge news. That's first of all, it's crazy that there's like already, it's not, the book has not released yet, and there's
Right.
already stuff. Okay, first of all, shout out to like whatever industrious writer got an arc and was like, I'm not even gonna wait.
Mm-mm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I
They work
also,
fast.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like the devil works hard, but fic writers work harder, and
Always.
we all know that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, that makes me so happy.
I love it.
It's
I'm
huge
excited.
news. Huge
That's great.
news.
Huge. So going back to Theo a little bit, you mentioned briefly, you know, Theo goes on this like gender journey during the
Yeah,
book, and I know that you had previously written about it on your Substack,
yeah,
because there were some reviews or a review at least that like very just kind of
missed the
massively
point. Yeah,
misunderstood what was going
yeah,
on. So can you talk a little bit about Theo's gender journey and how it
yeah,
impacts the larger narrative, especially because like Theo and Kit are both like bisexual switches, and so I'm curious how that kind of plays into,
yeah.
you know, that journey for them.
Well, like from jump, I knew I wanted to write a story that was like a like super bisexual, but also like specifically had a dynamic of like
I'm
a
so sorry, I'm
cis.
interrupting you really quick. The author is in the chat. Thank you for writing an AO3 fic about Callums. That's great.
Oh my God, wait, the fic author's in the chat.
Yes, and
Oh
thank
my
you for being
God,
here.
you're a legend. Oh my God.
Doing the Lord's work. Okay, I'm so
Wow,
sorry.
no, no,
Please go
no.
back to answer
No,
the
that you
question.
should, that's 1000% more important than whatever I was about to say. So thank you. Shout out to that person. Wow. Yes. My train of thought. Oh yeah. No, so I knew I wanted to write like a bi romance, but I also was like really wanted to write the dynamic of like Kit as like this mostly cis bi person and like Theo is like a non-binary bisexual and like the way that those things interact of like being attracted to all the different sides of the gender spectrum and then like loving someone who embodies all of these different parts of the gender spectrum and how like beautiful and expansive and like fun and dynamic and interesting that is, you know, like I think that like there are moments that I think like in their life together there will be moments that like Theo is like in a freakum dress or Theo is like full mask and like no matter what, Kit is going to be like, damn, I'm into that, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's really cool and I think that's really beautiful. And so like that was a huge part of like the genesis of like what kind of dynamic do I want to explore in this book? Because I knew it was going to be a super bisexual book and to me like one of the most fun and exciting things about bisexuality is like where it interacts with like gender expansiveness, you know? And like how I think sometimes like as a non-binary person, like the people with the greatest like range with which to like understand and love me on that level are bi people,
Yeah.
you know, because like I know my partner likes me whichever part of the spectrum I am embodying that day. Um, so like that was a huge part of it. And then like also the way that I like kind of fed the information out, like the way that like I think if I think like most like queer and trans people like would read the first half of the book from Theo's POV and like pick up on all of the stuff that's coded into that character,
Yeah,
all of the stuff that
absolutely.
like, you know, like all of these things that like Theo, when Theo's thinking about their self-concept, they're not thinking like, as a non-binary person, I feel this way. You
Right.
know, they're thinking like, I look at myself in the mirror and I like that like my chest looks flat today,
Right.
or like whatever. And I think, so, but at the same time, like I knew it was going to be something that they had learned about themselves during the, like in the intermediate time of
Yeah.
after the breakup, and I knew that they weren't going to like see Kit for the first time in 4 years and immediately be like, "Hey, you want to have a really vulnerable conversation in which I reveal something about myself?"
Right.
You know, and so and like Theo, especially not Theo, because Theo is like so intensely afraid of rejection,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I knew it was going to be a thing where like over the course of the book Kit would earn that trust back.
Right.
And we as the reader would earn that trust from Theo to like get to the point where they're like ready to have that conversation. But I thought it was also really important to me to have that moment of from Kit's POV when he literally immediately switches from like using she her pronouns to using they them pronouns
Yeah.
in his like internal monologue. I think that's a huge moment of like intimacy between them and like the intimacy of that like immediate unequivocal acceptance that he gives Theo in that moment, I feel like is such a huge part of like why he's the perfect person for them and like why their relationship works so well. And I wanted to have that moment on the happen on the page. And so in order to accomplish that, like I knew there were going to be choices I would have to make to like hold back information about Theo from like basically I just like wanted to have that moment without ever having Theo as much as possible avoid Theo ever being like intentionally misgendered on the page,
Right.
you know. And I would argue that even in the moments that somebody does like use pronouns that Theo wouldn't prefer, they're still like coming from somebody that Theo probably wouldn't have come out to anyway. You
Right.
know, like Theo's not going to come out to like the
Right.
Swedes, you know. Um, but anyway, it was just like I put like so much thought into like how to execute that, and that's the entire reason for like the first person POV and for the POV swap. It was like so that I could accomplish that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I feel like on a craft level, it informed so many other decisions that I made because like it informed like I mean like the way that like their sexual dynamic kind of like opens and evolves throughout the book, like as they're like being physically intimate with each other, the more that like Theo opens up to Kit again, and the more open Theo is about like this is what I have going on, the more I think that they're like exploring these dynamics that they've always had between them
Right.
sexually, but that like now have like they both understand a lot more like why is it like this? Why does it both work this
Yeah.
way for us? You know? So that was a really long answer to a very well, not a simple question. It was a good question. So I feel like it deserved a long answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer. And I
Yeah.
think something that I found really interesting as well was that there was no point during the book where I was like, these people are not in love with each other, or
Yeah.
like they need to fall back in love with
Yeah.
each other. But they did very clearly need to learn how to trust each other again. And so I
So much.
liked that that was such a huge component of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I felt like it was very representative of that. And so I felt like
Thank
that was
you.
really
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah. So building off of that, I feel like this is your most confident book to date by far. Like I feel like you are the most like in your craft here, and I feel like you're the most in your like world building and in your character building. And obviously we've known each other for a long time, so like I have a unique perspective here. But
Yeah.
how do you feel like you've grown as an author, not just since you signed your first book deal for Red, White, and Royal Blue,
But like
but
since
since you
jump.
like like since you decided this was what you wanted to pursue as a career?
Oh my God. I mean, I feel like because I'm such a self-taught writer,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I when I started college, I was like gonna major in English creative writing and I went to like literally one English creative writing, my first like class in that major. And immediately it was like, this is
Yeah.
not for me. I don't like the books we're reading. Everyone here seems annoying, and I am not confident enough to be presenting my writing in this class.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, it was very much like everything I learned about writing, I taught myself from reading. Um, and like just from like a lot of trial and error, a lot of trying to write and a lot of writing things, that like starting a lot of manuscripts that got abandoned. And I think with Red, White, and Royal Blue, like on the one hand, like I knew I had written something good and I knew that I believed in it, but at the same time, like as soon as it took off and as soon as it kind of became successful, I was like, oh, this is a fluke. Like I've gotten really lucky.
Sure.
And you know, I almost need to like figure out how to make myself legitimate before people realize that I'm a fluke, you know? Like I need to like it was like I was convinced that like I was the emperor with no clothes, you know?
Sure.
And I mean, I guess I'm just describing imposter syndrome. But I think it took me a while to shake that off. Like, no matter how much I knew that this is what I wanted to do and what I was supposed to do. Like, I had never seriously considered that like anything else was my purpose in life.
Yeah.
Like everything else I did in my life, other than writing books, I was like, well, I'm doing this until I figure out how to write a book one day, you know? And I think what has changed is that like I no longer am like feel like I'm like striving and like grasping for like what I think of as what I was thinking of as like legitimacy or having or like a sense of deserving success or being a serious person or whatever. And instead now I feel like in the past year especially I've like started thinking of myself as an artist and like and being like I do art and I am here like with intention crafting things on purpose and like and I am here not because of any accident or any mistake or any fluke but because I've worked really hard to be here.
Yeah.
And for the first time in like my entire career I did not allow imposter syndrome to be part of the process in writing and I was just like writing something that I really wanted to read and that I had a lot of fun writing. And I think that's why it shows like a lot less self consciousness in my writing. Like I think this book is, like you said, like it's definitely the most confident I've ever felt writing something.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think a lot of that comes with like turning 30, honestly. I think a lot of that comes with like, um, the relationships I have in my life, and a lot of it also comes with like time. Like I really think like time and therapy and anxiety medication, baby. Like shout out to Effexor.
Yeah, very true. That very key combination.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But truly, I mean, I really appreciate you saying that because like I I feel like um I I've worked really hard to get to the point where I am like mentally, spiritually, emotionally right now to be able to do the work I can do now, you know, and it really is that basis of like my opinion of myself that I think makes the difference.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm a fucking fluke anymore.
Good, because you're not. So I love that.
Thank you.
I understand that because like I think especially with your first book, like to have it go so big so fast.
Yeah, it felt like it was like this happened by accident.
Yeah.
Like who allowed this? Like
who said this was okay?
Yeah.
Nobody approved this.
Yeah.
This is fake. I get that. Yeah, absolutely. And so you just wrote about this for Time. And I know that you've talked about this a lot in the past, but like a lot of people in the literary world still sort of turn their noses up at romance.
Yes.
And I know a lot of that is just flat out misogyny because it comes from like, oh, like romance books are for like it's chick lit, like it's for girls and girls aren't serious. And I think that there has been a really concentrated effort, not just among romance authors, but among like romance readers and other publishing professionals in recent years to start kind of trying to change that perception. Can you just speak a little bit to how, like, where you feel your place is in that sort of pivot and also like why that is important, especially for people who want to engage with romance and not be mocked for it?
Yeah. My God. Yeah. No, I'm really thankful for the movement that's happening right now, and I feel like it's really being led primarily by booksellers.
Yeah.
I feel like my booksellers that I know are the ones who like are like they champion romance so
Mm-hmm.
hard, and like the romance booksellers, especially like I'm thinking about like I just spent a lot of time at my neighborhood indies this week signing stock, and I'm thinking about the booksellers at like Rip Bodice and at Books Your Magic,
Mm-hmm.
and Astoria Bookshop gives me so many great romance recs every time I go in. And it's just like, I am so passionate about this because I do think that it it is inherently misogynistic. I think it is also deeply like so American of us to be so fucking weird about like a genre that's about like sex and romance.
Yeah.
To be like this is something to like I'm uncomfortable about this and so I'm going to mock it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like American Puritanism
Yeah.
about it. Um, but it's so funny because romance is like one of the oldest genres of storytelling, and to like touch and be touched and to love and be loved is like I would argue like literally the core of human connection. And I think it's so completely ridiculous that like the idea that stories about that are
Mm-hmm.
frivolous or meaningless or not serious or not valuable. I mean, like, do you also think it's not valuable to like go outside and have a sandwich and a nice day and that like refills your soul and your
Right.
spirit? Like, do you think that doesn't mean
Right.
anything? You know, um, like I think like does it mean anything to like breathe? Like I I really feel that way about romance, and I think like it drives me nuts sometimes. I've read some of the best books I've read have been romance, and like you just know, like a romance book is never to get like the Booker Prize. Like a
Yeah.
romance book is never going to like I've been to like some really cool indie bookstores that like take themselves very seriously, and like if you want to find the romance books, you have to like go down to the basement
Yeah.
and like you know, and it's just like it is like this like dirty secret that we have that like romance keeps the lights on in publishing because it is like 25% of book
Mm-hmm.
sales, and at the same time it is like 0% of like what we want to tell people we're reading if we want
Right.
to be taken seriously. And I think we need to change that because I think that romance is like one of the most honest and vulnerable genres of literature. I think it is one of the most difficult to write well. It is um, tremendously research intensive depending on genre.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you like historical romance is just as heavily researched as like any other
Mm-hmm.
kind of historical fiction.
Yeah.
I'm very defensive of romance, and I am like really proud to see like that story that Time just did, and um, I know that more and more like the like quote unquote gatekeepers of like what is worth discussing seriously have
Yeah.
begun welcoming romance in. But I feel like it kind of reminds me a lot of like I'm also a huge horror
Oh,
fan.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
like it reminds me a lot of like how like genre stuff is not taken seriously. Like let's talk about how like nobody's nominating Interview with the Vampire for for the Emmys, even though everyone on that show is acting their fucking
Yeah.
ass off. Um,
It's so good.
anyway,
If you're not watching Interview with a
that's
Vampire
just
and
my
you like horror,
soapbox.
you
Yeah,
should.
that's my soapbox. I just decided to climb on for no reason today. Is like I just want to talk about how like Jacob Anderson is acting for his life
Yeah.
on that show
No, he
and
really is.
deserves
Yeah.
recognition.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's my soapbox on romance.
No, I love that. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think like you're right about the fact that like genre, romance, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, like all of that gets prestige within genre,
Yes.
but doesn't always get prestige outside of genre. And I think for
Yeah.
a while there was like the Game of Thrones effect
Yeah.
happening specifically for like fantasy. And
Mm-hmm.
then the finale happened, and then now
Yeah.
everybody's like, no, it's garbage,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Actually, it's garbage. No, it really drives me, and it's wild because like I feel like some of the most classic literature that we consider really like formative of our culture, and like you know, the bedrock of modern literature is genre fiction. It's sci-fi and fantasy. It's like Tolkien and Shelley and like stuff like that. And it's like where we lost the plot somewhere. Like
Yeah.
we used to like think that Jane Austen was like the peak of
Yeah.
literature and she was a romance writer. Like we've lost the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. So for you, as somebody who specifically writes, you know, queer and trans romance novels, I feel like in some ways, like the stakes are
Yeah.
higher when you're writing about, you know, underrepresented genders and about like very explicit, like queer relationships.
Yeah.
Did those stakes ever change for you? Like when you start to write a new book
Yeah.
or when you conceive of something new?
For sure. I mean, I think that like when I first started out, I really didn't like when I was writing Red, White, and Royal Blue, I really didn't understand. I didn't know enough about the industry yet
Mm-hmm.
to know what a hard sell it was going to be. Like I didn't know that there wasn't anything really like it being published by like traditional publishing
Yeah.
in the way that I saw straight romances being published. And I guess in a good way, I'm glad. And in a way, I'm really glad I didn't know that because then like I didn't have the like anxiety and doubt
Yeah.
of like why am I even writing this if nobody's going to publish it? Instead, I was like, I've written this. Does someone want to
You
publish
want
it? You
this?
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like once I realized what a thing it was, like what a rarity it was for something like that to be published, then I became really, I feel like I like when I was writing One Last Stop, it took me like months to get out of my head when I was writing it because I was really anxious about like I guess I felt like I needed to like do right by this opportunity that I had been afforded, you know, and I was really anxious about like if this flops, am I going to just like become a case study in why like queer fiction is like not worth
Yeah.
investing in, you know, like why like queer romance isn't worth investing in because like I felt like there was, yeah, I felt like I was sort of in some ways like a kind of case study on like can this be
Yeah.
sustainable in the market, you know. And so that was really scary and it took me a long time. Like it wasn't until the second draft I really got out of my head and like was and it stopped getting in my way when I was
Mm-hmm.
writing, you know. And then I think with Shara Wheeler, my I was thinking about like from a very personal point of view of like what do I need to work through and like what do
Yeah.
I think other people need to work through that I could maybe speak to. And then with this one, it was funny. I feel like this one was my like I wanted to. It's so funny. I every single time I sit down, my best friend like makes fun of me about this so much. She's also an author. Her name's Sasha Smith. She wrote The Witch Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, every time you sit down to write a book, you're like, this time I'm just gonna have fun and I'm not gonna try and like do anything important. And then you like get like 50,000 words in and you're like, actually, it's about gender. But with this one, it really was like, I felt like my book, I wanted to do a book that was not trying to be important. You know, I wanted to do a book that was just fun and sexy, and also queer. And because I do think that's like, for me, the stakes of like queer books in publishing is like that there also needs to be room for our books that are just about being like hot and
Yeah.
messy and horny, you know, because like that's also representation. And like when I hang out with my gay friends, we're not just like we're not, I mean, we are often sitting and talking about the state of the world, but we
Yeah.
are not always just sitting around talking about the queer experience. We're often talking about like, you know, like whatever shenanigans people got up to over the weekend, you
Yeah.
know, like
Absolutely. Yeah.
um so that was kind of the stakes of it for me. It was like I wanted to write something that like couldn't be seen. I mean, I think in some ways it's because of like the gender of it all. It like definitely like deals with some
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but I didn't want it to be seen as like an issue book.
Right.
You know, I wanted it to be seen as like a rom com and like a like horny escapist like romp. You know,
Yeah.
so those are and like now I feel like my stakes are like I do feel like one of the stakes I have in mind though is that like I'm in a very rare position in publishing where like I have I've now been able to like because I've been able to sustain like my career this far, that I feel like a responsibility to like see how much farther I can push it. And that's why I like every time I got nervous about writing like a non-binary lead in this book, I was like, but I need to do it because like I know that they will print it. If I write, like I know that like if I write this, they have to print it because like I'm already under the contract, you know.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like part of the way that I pay back what I've been given in this life is that like I need to do those things. It's like I need to do the thing that is sometimes scary or vulnerable because like we need to do it. It needs to be done. Someone needs to do it, and I'm probably not the first, but like I'm one person who at least already has like the resources around me to hopefully make something a little more publishable in the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that you use your platform to that end as well, because I think that there are a fair number of writers, I mean, any creative really, who like gets to that point and then just kind of like casually lets the door shut behind them, you know, just kind of.
Yeah. I don't ever want to do that. And I honestly like don't even ever want to get to the point where I become like complacent in like in what I'm writing about. And like I think even when I'm writing something that I'm like, I'm just here to have like a fun and sexy time, I'm still also thinking about like, but like how is this in conversation with like what else is like being published in queer romance right now? Like I don't know, I for some reason what just came to mind is like the first time I read Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner, and that was the first time I had read like a big 5 publisher published book that had like a strap-on scene in it. And I was like, I can't believe that Berkeley published this. Like I was
had
like,
a similar response. I was very like, what?
I was like, that's allowed? That's allowed?
You can do
that?
Oh
my God. Yeah. And that was huge. And like, honestly, like I had already had like several queer books published by the time I read that. And I was like, this makes me so much braver because like, I didn't know I was allowed to do that. I didn't know we could get away with that. And that's what I think is like, I think every time somebody, like, I always want to put something in a book that like would be like electrifying to read for the first time if that was something you were looking for in a book. And I feel like The Pairing has a lot of those moments for me where like, I know if like I could erase my memory and read it for the first time as a reader, there's so many things in it that would be like, oh, I can't believe you can do that. I didn't know I could do that in a book. Like, so
I had some of those while I was reading. Very, very much exactly that moment of like, oh, I didn't know they would publish that.
Yeah. It's like I thought this was for AO3 only. Like I didn't know. Like I didn't know that we were. Yeah, I mean, I really can't emphasize enough how much I was amazed the first time I read that scene and Mistakes Were Made, and I realized like, oh, we're like cooking with gas now in queer romance. Like
thank God.
We don't, and I love that. And because like I've seen what the girlies are up to in straight romance, and like I want to keep pushing us up to that level, you know. Like
they're doing the most.
Oh my God, the fact that Allie Hazelwood got ABO on the New York Times bestsellers list, I think she should be like sainted for that.
Really?
Like that's wild, and that is like I never thought I would see the day. And I think like the nerve of her, I think that's incredible. It's iconic, and I love it.
Yeah, coming from like a deep online fandom place, when that happened, I had to like explain it to a couple of friends because they were like, why is this like a big deal? I don't understand. And I was like, how do I like condense this into like a couple of text messages?
I think you just
so that I still seem normal.
No, you still you could maybe just like send them that article about like the Omegaverse lawsuit.
If I remember correctly. I was like, let's just do this. Just read this and then let me know how you feel.
It's like otherwise you're gonna have to spend like 3 to 5 business days explaining this.
A bare minimum. And then I'm gonna have to spend an additional 3 to 5 business days explaining why I know so much. And that's maybe just too much at a certain point. So we do have a question from Caitlin in the chat, which I'm gonna just throw up on the screen. But Caitlin asks, why does writing from a softer, kinder, optimistic world as a setting feel important to you as a queer reader / writer?
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of it is selfish because when I'm writing, like I'm inhabiting that world for like I said, like a year or two,
Yeah.
and part of it is like I think when I first came, like all of my starting points with writing, I think were as an escape, whether I was like escaping like being a weird and awkward tween or escaping like going to Jesus school or escaping like having anxiety and depression or like being closeted or whatever. Like I think I always would retreat into worlds that I wanted to be in that weren't my own. And I think that just developed my voice and my point of view as a writer into like someone who reaches for that kind of story and that kind of world. But I think also it's really what interests me about like the queer experience. If I'm going to sit and write about like being queer, um, like what interests me most about it is like the opportunities that it allows and like the things I love about it and like the what's special about being queer and like what's like transformative and interesting and cool about it. Like I'll never forget like when I first came out to my mom, I said something to the effect of like, I this is actually one of my favorite things about myself, and I'm actually very proud to be part of this community. And I just remember her like looking very confused because I think that's something that like a lot of straight people maybe haven't considered before is that like being queer is like not like a a thing to get through or like a burden to bear or like something to come to terms with. It can be like it can be all those things, but it can also be like your favorite thing about yourself
Yeah.
or like what you like most about being alive,
Yeah.
and that's what really interests me as a writer.
Yeah. No, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I love being queer,
Yeah.
and I feel like if I had to move to the world as a non-queer person, it would be
It would.
sad and weird.
It would be like I feel like yeah, no. And that's like how I feel about like gender and sexuality too for me. Like I feel like both of those things to me, I'm like not interested in putting any limits on either of those experiences for myself.
Yeah.
In fact, what I'm interested in is like expanding all the way out to the edges of both of those things. And I feel that way as a writer too.
Yeah. I love that. All right, we've got a couple more from the chat. So the first one is from Anna. It says, I'm so ready to finally read The Pairing. I'm going to the
Yay.
Atlanta signing, and I just want to know how you prepare for tour.
Oh my God, that's what a question. Okay, well, this time around, I'm preparing a lot more because I'm going like it's a 2 week tour. It's like the longest tour I've had. And so I went and got a B12 shot the other day. I'm on vitamin D, like prescription vitamin D supplements right now. Like we're investing in our health right now.
Absolutely.
I got a new water bottle.
Okay.
I've been online shopping for travel pillows.
Okay.
But in terms of like how do I emotionally prepare for tour, I mean, I talked to once again my therapist and my anxiety medications, and also I feel like tour is like one thing that like I think is maybe I've talked to a lot of authors about touring, and I think something that is true for me more than some authors is just that like my signing lines tend to be like very emotional, like very like we are like connecting on this like people are coming through my lens and being like, like I read your book and I came out to my mom, or like
Yeah.
I like, like this book like saved my life, and like really incredible, like amazing things to be shared with me. But it's also like it is like a huge emotional transaction that we're doing together. Where like you, like me, I'm sitting in a line. I'm sitting there, and like a line of people, like 300 people comes through, and like each one of them like pours into me, and I try to pour back out into them. And one thing that's important to be able to like, it's very, very important to be able to meet people where they are in that moment and to like be in that moment with them. And the important thing is for me to be able to do that, I have to like really look after my mental health when I'm not in that room, And so like I do a lot of like, I have like a lot of naps and I have a lot of playlists, and like I like sometimes when I'm like touched out and overstimulated at the end of the night, like it's really important to me to be able to like be like, hey guys, really appreciate that like my friends and family want to go out for dinner and drinks. However, I'm going to go back to my hotel and stare at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because like I love those moments, and I want to be there in those moments with like readers and with people who are like really connecting with me and my work. And I want to be able to bring 100% of myself to that. But I also have to like do, I have to do like self-care to be able to do that. And so that's like a big way that I prepare for tour. And I hope that doesn't come off like I'm saying like tour is exhausting. It's more that like tour is like an emotional sport that you have to condition for, you know?
Yeah.
I love touring. I love touring. And I'm very excited to meet people.
And I think it's really valid to be like, I love doing this thing that is also very taxing in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like it's taxing on your body to have to travel so much. It's like, taxing on, like you said, your mental health. Like it's a lot, you know?
And like I'm like spiritually, energetically like woo-woo enough to be like, I do think there's like something to be said for like the energetic exchange that's happening in that room, and like, and how like I like I am giving to them and they are giving to me, and then like there's all this energy that's there, and like you need to let it out afterward, whether it is like sometimes I need to like dance around my hotel room, or sometimes I need to take a power nap, or sometimes I need to like house an entire pizza, but like that energy has to go somewhere. So it's important to like prepare for that, and to like know that that's going to be part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so we have a couple more from chat, and then I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up after these. So we have from Alexa, what has it been like interacting with fans over the years? Do you have a particularly memorable fan interaction?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so fun. Honestly, it's like been really healing for me as somebody who like didn't grow up with a lot of queer community around me, to like go out on tour. It's like it's like 2 weeks straight of like being in a room of like hundreds of people, and we're all here for the same reasons, and I have nothing to fear from anyone in that room, and like we are all here in community with each other. Like that's really healing for me, and like hopefully it's healing for some of the people who are there too. So it feels really great to be able to like create a moment for community to happen. I feel like God, fan interaction that stands out in my mind. I feel like I think all the time about like when I was on tour for Shara. I was in Boston, and I was signing, and this girl came through the line, and she was probably like 14 or 15. Her name was Molly, and she like had this like really cool like bag that she had crocheted herself in like the colors of the cover that she showed me, and like that was really cool. But like what really stands out for me in my mind is that she was there with her dad, who was like the most classic like Boston dad you've ever seen. And like he got a book signed too, and he was like thank you so much for like what you do for my kid, like you make her so happy, and like all of this. And like the fact that this like straight dad had come and stood in line for 2 hours for his like teenager to get like their gay book signed, and like also got one signed. I literally was like, grabbed his hand. I was like, you're doing an amazing job. And like, you know, and it's like moments like that, I think, that like really get me. Is like I have a lot of like people who come through with their mom or like whatever, and like for some reason like the idea of like a parent and a family bonding over like my super queer work like really makes me emotional, because like it can like when I think about like how much that would have meant to me as a teenager, you know. So I guess I would say that.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so from Shailene, Shailene would like to know, what is the biggest difference between Casey McQuiston, the book author, and Casey McQuiston, the screenwriter?
Oh my God. Well, Casey McQuiston, the screenwriter, Casey McQuiston, the book author, gets to like work in seclusion.
Sure.
Like when I'm writing a book, I'm like over in my little corner with my little it's like I'm like have my little figurines that I'm like pushing together, and I'm like, you know, it's very much like it activates this like childish, like childlike sense of self, where like my number one, well, no one asked this, but like my number one form of play as a kid was like little figurines that I would act out the most elaborate fucking stories with. And I feel like this is the adult version of that. And so like that is when I am like at my most like truest, most like gremlin-y self is like when I'm over here in the corner by myself working on my manuscript that no one's allowed to read. Screenwriting Casey is much more collaborative and much more like open to suggestion.
Sure.
Like novel writing Casey is like, I don't want to, nobody's allowed to read this manuscript until it's done because nobody's allowed to tell me what I'm not going to do in this manuscript.
Right.
Whereas like in screenwriting, like you have to be a team player and you have to like really I've learned so much about not being overly precious about like or like getting too attached to like one thing because it's like, well, like we need to cut pages or like we need to cut like minutes off the script or whatever. And I think also screenwriting Casey, it's um, still learning to stop doing so much prose. Like
Gotcha.
novel writing Casey loves prose. Screenwriting Casey has to be minimal prose and
Yeah, it's very different.
and all action and words, and that's much harder for me because I like to do a lot of introspective writing. So that's I would say the biggest differences.
Makes sense. So then from, let's see, there's so many in here. I love that y'all are super engaged. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the ones that we're gonna do two more.
Okay.
Wait,
before we do two more, I just want
Yeah.
my dog is being very cute and like napping right next to me. So I just wanted to show you guys Pepper.
What a cutie.
Okay.
She's just lounging. I love that for her. She deserves that. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear my cat screaming in the background. She wants treats.
I don't hear her, but I wish I could.
Great. Yeah, she's very loud. I'm always worried that people are going to think that I'm like torturing her, but she's fine. I promise.
You are torturing her because you're not giving her treats at this exact moment.
You're right. I'm very cruel.
I'm gonna call 911.
Okay, so user homosexual. I love that username.
Fantastic. I hope they play the saxophone.
Yeah, yeah. How is writing this book with a trans or non-binary main character different than the writing of your other books?
I think it was like I had to like, I mean, I definitely have put a lot of thought into gender no matter what kind of gender I'm writing, because like it's always there. But I feel like with this one, I was putting a lot of thought into like, I guess like how Theo felt about their gender. You know, like I don't know that like Alex Claremont Diaz thinks that hard about like being a dude all the time. I mean, not to say that he doesn't. If there are people out there who believe that Alex is non-binary, then I support them, and that's great. I'm just saying that with Theo, it was like much more top of mind to me. Like, well, like how do they feel about themselves in this context? Like, how do they feel about what they're going to wear to this event? You know. So I think I thought about that a lot. Something that I didn't even notice that I did that my sister pointed out to me after she read the book. She was like, it's really funny because when you read the first half of the book, Theo's like chest, like from like the waist to shoulders, it's like a void. It's like never referred to, never like thought about or anything like that. And then you switch to Kit's POV and all of a sudden like you see every inch of Theo's body and like he like doesn't look away from any of it. And I didn't even realize I had done that. And I was like, oh, I wrote like body dysphoria into this character without even intentionally doing it. I guess because that was just like my experience of like when I had boobs, you know? So I think like those are the things that like that require a bit more like intention and craft sometimes. Is like not just what the gender is being expressed as, but also like how the character themselves conceptualizes it, and that's something that has to happen like in prose, and that's a bit harder, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so for our last question, this actually lines up with the last question that I wanted to ask you, so
fun,
great minds. So who are some of your biggest inspirations, and what do you hope people take away from you as an author?
So my biggest inspirations, I mean, I guess Jane Austen, obviously. I'm gonna like say three people who are dead, and it's gonna sound like I'm like a pretentious 15-year-old who's like trying to be like, I don't listen to music recorded before the 90s or after the 90s. But like I feel like Oscar Wilde was really formative on me. I was like like I also really love uh, oh my God, why can I not remember? Literally the oh my God, the author of Room with a View. Why am I
Forster.
blanking on it? Forster.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Ian Forster. Yes. Forster, big influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
I
A
just
big
love,
influence on this book
yes,
also. Yeah.
yes. I feel like I read a lot of Dorothy Parker as
Mm-hmm.
a teenager. As you could tell, I was so cool.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I was really into like those like sort of humorous, like, very like wry, sarcastic, like quippy, sensitive humor, but like with a lot of like playfulness too. You know, that I feel like all of those writers have in common. So I feel like they all like really inspired me. But then like recently I've been like um not I don't know if I would say that this is an inspiration of my work as much as just somebody who's inspired me as a
Mm-hmm.
person. But recently I've been reading some Anne Rice
Okay.
because of Interview with the Vampire. And sometimes I'm just like reading what she's writing, especially in like the Vampire Lestat, and I'm like, what inspires me about this is how 1000% committed to this she is. Like the way that she cares about her characters and the
Mm-hmm.
way that she cares about the story. I mean, like there are like lines I'm reading that I'm like, I can't believe this is real. You know, like I can't believe this has been what was published in this book all this time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Which I
So
think is why she was so deeply anti fan fiction. Is
I
because she
know.
was like, no, this is my sandbox and you
Yeah.
can't play here.
Oh, she has a lot of very strong opinions about like
Mm-hmm.
exactly what who these characters are. I mean, you read The Vampire Lestat and you're like, okay, yeah, you know what, Anne? I am scared to touch him now, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like I'm looking at my shelf now. I'm cheating. I mean, Tolkien, I
Sure.
know it's like, but like one of my most formative. Um, but what do I hope people take away? It's I really feel like I really, like I was saying earlier, like I really hope that every time somebody reads one of my books, they have like that electrifying moment of being like, I didn't know this was allowed.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know people could do this. Can I do this?
Right.
Could I do this if I tried? I really, that's, I mean, specifically with this book, I hope people take away that like, um, bisexuality and gender are like a lot bigger and more like multidimensional and expansive than they may have thought that either of those things were, and that maybe they take away some curiosity about
Yeah.
themselves. I really hope that people take away a lot of curiosity about themselves from my books. Whenever people are like, "Yeah, your book made me realize that like I'm queer or whatever," I'm like, "Hell
That's
yes,
great.
my recruitment strategies are working." You know?
The real queer agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but truly, I do hope people take away like a sense of curiosity about themselves and about like the world that they live in, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this tandem talk. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
thank you
it.
for having me.
Yeah,
This was so
absolutely.
fun, and thank y'all for picking me for the book club.
Oh yeah.
I am so jazzed about it, and I'm such a big fan of the work that y'all do.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah. We figured, it is like hot girl brat summer, and so it's very important that we read like the horniest
Yes.
book that we can. And I feel like this fits the bill really well.
So true. And I also feel that like Hot Girl Summer is like gender neutral. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I
Like
get
Hot
you.
Girl Summer is like a state of being.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thank you all for coming and watching this chat. We really appreciate you. The pairing comes out on Tuesday, August 6th. You can grab it from your local bookstore. Support your local booksellers if you can.
Yes, please
And
do.
then, and if you're interested in reading and talking about the pairing with us, it is our book club pick for August. So we'll be meeting on Friday, August 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern on Zoom, and you can sign up for reminders. Like you'll get little email blasts at the link in our bio. So yeah,
Yay.
thank you so much.
Go sign up.
Yeah, have an excellent weekend and
Yeah, you
congrats on the
too.
release.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Bye,
Yes,
guys.
bye.
Bye.